Everyone assumes money can beat geography. Saudi Arabia decided to test it. The plan was a city called NEOM, in one of the emptiest, hottest corners of the Arabian Peninsula. The headline price was $500 billion. The centerpiece was the Line, a single mirrored building 106 miles long, taller than the Empire State Building, holding 9 million people. No cars, no streets, a civilization stacked vertically and run by artificial intelligence. The renderings were gorgeous. And here's the thing about the renderings. So far, they're pretty much all that got built. The real question was never whether Saudi Arabia could afford it. It's whether the ground they chose would let it happen. So far, the ground is winning. Let's start with the ambition here, because you have to get a sense for how big it was before you watch it shrink. NEOM isn't a city. It's a zone the size of Belgium, about 10,000 square miles of desert on the Red Sea coast. The line was supposed to run 106 miles straight through it, 1,600 feet tall, only about 650 feet wide, clad entirely in mirrored glass so it would reflect the desert and seem to vanish. 9 million residents by 2045 with a GDP to rival Switzerland. Forget the $500 billion price tag for a second. NEOM claimed building the line would demand 20% of the global steel market's capacity during peak construction. One building, a fifth of the world's yearly steel supply, just to keep up. Now, here's what exists. By 2024, that 106-mile city had already been cut to a first phase of about 1.5 miles. That's roughly 1% of the original length. More than $50 billion had already been spent across NEOM territory to get there. Even when you spread that cash across the project's planned islands, ports, and mountain resorts, the burn rate is staggering, shaping up to be the most expensive master-planned region in human history. So the money showed up, the city didn't. To understand why, you have to look at what the money was fighting. Now, the obvious take is that this was just vanity. A prince with too much oil money building a sci-fi toy in the sand. But that read is lazy, because the strategic logic underneath it is real. Saudi Arabia runs on oil. Oil demand peaks at some point this century, and when it does, a country with nothing but oil is just a desert with expensive infrastructure. Vision 2030, the plan NEOM belongs to, is a serious attempt to build a second economy before the first one fades. That part deserves respect. And the location wasn't random either. NEOM sits in Tabuk province, at the northern tip of the Red Sea, right where 3 continent shipping lanes funnel toward the Suez Canal. Egypt is across the water, Jordan is next door. On a map, it looks like a natural place to build a trade hub, close to a route that already carries a huge share of the world's cargo. So the goal was sound. Diversify the economy, plant it next to global shipping, build the thing that outlasts the oil. The strategy makes sense. But the strategy was never the problem. The site was. Here's where the geography really puts on the brakes. Start with the water. Tabuk gets roughly 2 inches of rain a year. Los Angeles, which is basically a desert itself, gets around 15. There's no river here, no aquifer that could support a major city. So every drop for 9 million people would have to be manufactured, pulled from the sea and desalinated. That burns enormous amounts of energy and dumps concentrated brine back into the Red Sea, where Saudi desalination is already stressing the reef systems. That's the part people miss. Manufactured water isn't a problem you solve once. It's a bill the city pays every single day, forever, built into the physics of the place. Then there's heat. Summer temperatures in the region routinely hit 115 degrees. The air is so hot and humid that a human body can't cool itself, even sitting in the shade. The line's whole promise was millions of people moving through open-air corridors and gardens. Air conditioning 106 miles of glass tower in that heat is a cost nobody put a real number on. And underneath all of it, the ground itself isn't stable. The site sits right beside the Gulf of Aqaba, along the Dead Sea Transform, a live plate boundary. In 1995, that fault produced a magnitude 7.2 earthquake just offshore. It set off aftershocks that rattled on for 2 years. Now, think about building the tallest, longest mirrored structure ever attempted directly along that. There's no real-world test for it. Nobody has ever tried. Water you have to manufacture, heat that can kill in the shade, a fault that already flattened towns. 3 strong reasons not to do it. Now, if you know the Gulf region, you've been waiting to yell one word at me: Dubai. And it's the right objection. 50 years ago, Dubai was a small trading settlement on a creek in the same brutal desert. Today, it's a global city. 3.5 million people. One of the busiest airports on Earth. An incredible modern skyline. Geography didn't stop Dubai. So why should it stop NEOM? For starters, look at what Dubai actually had. A natural harbor. A position on one of the planet's busiest shipping lanes. A place ships were already stopping. Dubai had the traffic and grew city by city, decade by decade, each phase paying for the next. NEOM inverts every piece of that. It's trying to manufacture the waypoint from scratch, in a spot ships weren't already stopping, and betting the traffic shows up because the city exists. That's backwards. Cities grow around activity that's already there. NEOM tried to build the city first and attract the activity later. And Dubai took 40 years. NEOM's timeline was a political deadline. 2030, set by a prince, announced to the world. Deserts don't care about announcements. Go back to those renderings. The mirrored wall vanishing into the dunes, the 9 million people, the gardens in the sky. By early 2026, the timeline had fractured. The CEO was gone, the workforce was cut by more than a third, and unrealistic projects were put on the back burner while they scrambled to finish a few immediate resorts. The 106-mile city had been shaved to 1.5 miles, and independent analysts put the real cost of the full dream well over $1 trillion, exceeding the country's entire annual economy, with a finish date closer to 2080 than 2030. The prince himself reportedly accepted it would be built far smaller, if at all. The money and ambition were real. What broke it wasn't a spreadsheet. It was 2 inches of rain, 115-degree heat, and a fault line that was there long before the first check cleared. The projects that last are the ones that work with geography instead of against it. Ports where harbors already were. Cities where the water already ran. NEOM bet $500 billion that a good enough rendering could overrule all of that. The desert looked at the rendering and didn't care. The world has a structure. Let's keep finding it.